Heavy fighters sacrificed dogfighting agility for devastating firepower, extended range, and the ability to carry a second crew member. And here's every major type that prowled the skies of World War II. German heavy fighters. Messerschmitt Bf 110, the destroyer fighter, and Germany's primary heavy fighter when war began. The Bf 110 was supposed to be the ultimate bomber escort and bomber destroyer, bristling with cannons and machine guns. In the early war, particularly over Poland and France, it performed adequately against inferior opposition. Then came the Battle of Britain, and reality hit hard. RAF Hurricanes and Spitfires tore Bf 110 formations apart. The twin-engine Messerschmitt couldn't turn with single-engine fighters, and its defensive armament was inadequate. Losses were catastrophic, and Bf 110s ended up needing fighter escorts themselves, a humiliating reversal. But here's the thing. The Bf 110 found its niche as a night fighter. Equipped with radar, it became the backbone of German night fighter defenses, shooting down hundreds of RAF bombers over Germany. Crews like Heinz Wolfgang Schnaufer scored over 100 night kills in Bf 110s. The aircraft that failed as a day fighter became deadly in darkness. Messerschmitt Me 210, the disaster that nearly destroyed Messerschmitt's reputation. Designed to replace the Bf 110, the Me 210 was plagued by horrible stability problems from the first flight. It would spin without warning, the controls felt wrong, and pilots hated it. Test pilots died, production aircraft crashed on delivery, and Luftwaffe units refused to accept them. Ernst Udet, head of Luftwaffe development, was so distraught over the Me 210 debacle that it contributed to his suicide. Production was halted, restarted with modifications, then halted again. The Me 210 was eventually redesigned so extensively it became a different aircraft, the Me 410. But not before wasting resources Germany desperately needed and killing pilots in accidents rather than combat. Messerschmitt Me 410 Hornice. The Me 210 fixed, sort of. The Hornice, or Hornet, addressed most of the Me 210's stability problems through a longer fuselage and revised wing design. It was fast, reaching 390 mph, and heavily armed with cannons and machine guns. Some variants carried 50mm anti-tank cannons for ground attack or massive BK-5 cannons for bomber destruction. The Me 410 served as a bomber destroyer, attacking American daylight raids over Germany. But by 1944, American escort fighters like the P-51 made Me 410 operations suicidal. The Hornice could devastate bomber formations, but it couldn't survive against Mustangs. It ended up relegated to reconnaissance and night fighting, roles where its speed offered some protection. Focke-Wulf Ta-154 Mosquito, Germany's attempt to copy the British Mosquito, building a wooden twin-engine night fighter. The Ta-154 was actually quite good in testing. Fast, maneuverable for a heavy fighter, and well-armed. But Germany's synthetic glue failed catastrophically. Several Ta-154s simply came apart in flight when the glue dissolved. Imagine flying at 400 mph when your wooden aircraft starts delaminating around you. Production was halted immediately. Only about 50 were built before the program ended. The Ta-154 represented what could have been, a capable night fighter undone by material science failures. Germany's resource shortages made even wood unreliable. Junker's Ju-88C. Take a bomber, add a solid nose packed with cannons, and you have a heavy fighter. The Ju-88C was surprisingly effective, using the reliable Ju-88 bomber airframe as the basis for night fighters and heavy fighters. It was fast enough to intercept bombers, maneuverable enough to track targets, and could carry radar for night operations. Ju-88 night fighters shot down hundreds of RAF bombers over Germany. The versatility of the basic Ju-88 design allowed it to serve in almost every role Germany needed: bomber, dive bomber, torpedo bomber, reconnaissance, and heavy fighter. While not purpose-built for fighting, the Ju-88C proved that good basic design could be adapted successfully. Heinkel He-219 Uhu. The Owl was Germany's most advanced night fighter, and arguably the best of the war. The He-219 featured a tricycle landing gear, rare for German aircraft, ejection seats for both crew members, and a devastating armament of cannons, including upward-firing, Schrag music guns, mounted to fire at a 70-degree angle into bomber bellies. Early He-219s proved so effective that one pilot shot down 5 RAF bombers in a single 30-minute sortie. It was fast, maneuverable, and packed with the latest radar. But production was limited. Only about 300 were built. Inter-service rivalry meant the Luftwaffe favored other types, and the He-219 never received the priority it deserved. Those that flew were deadly, but there were never enough. American heavy fighters. Lockheed P-38. Lightning, the fork-tailed devil, and America's most distinctive fighter. That twin-boom design with the central nacelle housing pilot and armament was instantly recognizable. The P-38 was America's answer to the long-range escort problem. It had the range to accompany bombers deep into enemy territory. All guns were concentrated in the nose, meaning no convergence issues, and that battery of machine guns and cannon could shred targets. In the Pacific, the P-38 was superb. Richard Bong scored 40 kills in one, making him America's top ace. Tommy Maguire got 38 kills. The P-38's range allowed missions Japanese fighters couldn't match. In Europe, it was less successful. The cockpit heating was inadequate at high altitude, engines seized in the cold, and German fighters could outturn it. But for long-range missions and ground attack, the Lightning was invaluable. It shot down Yamamoto's transport, killing Japan's most capable admiral. The P-38 proved that unconventional design could work brilliantly when matched to the right mission. Northrop P-61, Black Widow, America's purpose-built, radar-equipped night fighter, and it was huge. The largest fighter of World War II. The Black Widow looked like a black flying wing with twin booms, crew of 3, and bristling with .50 caliber machine guns or cannons. That SCR-720 radar could find bombers in complete darkness, and the armament could destroy them. P-61s operated in the Pacific and Europe, hunting Japanese and German aircraft at night. The Black Widow was effective, but arrived late in the war, seeing limited action. What it proved was that America could build specialized aircraft for specific roles, even if only needed in small numbers. Post-war, the P-61 influenced jet night fighter development. Grumman F-7F Tiger Cat. The most powerful piston engine fighter America built, and it barely saw World War II. The Tiger Cat was a twin-engine carrier fighter that could outperform most single-engine fighters. 2 massive Pratt and Whitney R2800 engines gave it incredible power. It was faster than the Corsair, more heavily armed, and could carry significant ordnance. But it was also large and complex, requiring large carriers. The F-7F arrived too late for significant World War II combat, only seeing limited Marine Corps service in the war's final months. Post-war, it served in Korea and proved capable. The Tiger Cat represented the peak of piston engine fighter development. Anything more would require jets. Bell P-39. Airacobra. Wait, single engine. Why is it here? The P-39 is often categorized with heavy fighters due to its heavy armament and unique design. That 37mm cannon firing through the propeller hub and the mid-mounted engine made it unconventional. The Soviets loved it, using it as a low-altitude fighter and ground attacker on the Eastern Front, where its heavy gun was devastating. American pilots found it inadequate at high altitude, and difficult to recover from spins. The P-39 represents the blurred line between heavy and light fighters. It had the firepower philosophy of a heavy fighter in a single engine package. British heavy fighters. De Havilland Mosquito, the wooden wonder, and arguably the best combat aircraft of World War II in terms of versatility. The Mosquito was built almost entirely of wood, which freed up aluminum for other aircraft and allowed furniture makers to participate in production. It was fast, one of the fastest aircraft of the war, often outrunning fighters sent to intercept it. Mosquito bombers didn't need defensive armament because they simply flew too fast to catch. Fighter variants carried 4 cannons and 4 machine guns, devastating firepower. Night fighter Mosquitoes hunted German aircraft over Britain and Germany, often equipped with radar. The Mosquito served as a bomber, fighter, night fighter, reconnaissance aircraft, pathfinder, and anti-shipping strike aircraft. It could carry a 4,000-pound cookie bomb to Berlin, pinpoint bomb Gestapo headquarters, or Hunt V-1 flying bombs. The versatility was unmatched. Crews loved it, calling it the Mossy with genuine affection. The Mosquito proved that speed and versatility could be more valuable than armor and defensive guns. Bristol Beaufighter. The bow was created by marrying Beaufort bomber components with Bristol's powerful radial engines, creating a heavy fighter that looked purposeful and aggressive. Those 4 cannons in the belly and 6 machine guns in the wings could shred anything. The Beaufighter served as a night fighter, coastal strike aircraft, and ground attack platform. In the Mediterranean, Beaufighters devastated Axis shipping, attacking with cannons, rockets, and torpedoes. German and Italian sailors feared the Whispering Death, as they called it in the Pacific. The Beaufighter was tough, reliable, and deadly. It pioneered airborne radar use in combat, developing tactics that influenced night fighting for decades. While not as famous as the Mosquito, the Beaufighter was equally important to British success. Westland Whirlwind, Britain's first single-seat twin-engine fighter, and it looked mean, very streamlined, low profile, with 4 cannons clustered in the nose. The Whirlwind was fast and maneuverable for a twin-engine aircraft, and that concentrated firepower was devastating. But it was plagued by engine problems. The Rolls-Royce Peregrine engines were underpowered and unreliable, limiting performance and altitude. Only 116 were built before production ended. The Whirlwind served mainly in ground attack roles, where its low-altitude performance was adequate. It represented British ambition hampered by industrial limitations. They designed a good fighter, but couldn't produce reliable engines for it. Bolton-Paul Defiant, the turret fighter disaster. The Defiant looked like a Hurricane, but with a powered turret behind the pilot instead of forward-firing guns. The theory was that the turret could engage bombers from any angle. Reality was different. German fighters massacred Defiants in the Battle of Britain. The Defiant couldn't defend itself against fighters attacking from ahead. Losses were so severe that Defiants were withdrawn from day fighting. They found some success as night fighters, where the turret was useful against bombers, but were soon replaced by radar-equipped aircraft. The Defiant proved that innovative ideas don't always work in combat. Soviet heavy fighters. Petlyakov P-3. The P-3 was a fighter conversion of the P-2 dive bomber, adding forward-firing guns and removing the dive bomber equipment. It served as a heavy fighter, reconnaissance aircraft, and night fighter. The P-3 was fast and could carry significant armament, but it wasn't particularly successful as a fighter. Soviet pilots found it adequate for reconnaissance and ground attack, where its speed offered some protection. The P-3 represented Soviet practicality. Modify existing aircraft for new roles rather than designing from scratch. Petlyakov P-2. Primarily a dive bomber, but some variants were configured as heavy fighters with additional forward-firing armament. The P-2 was one of the best Soviet aircraft of the war. fast, and versatile. Fighter variants served in limited numbers, mainly for escort duties. The P-2's speed made it effective even in fighter configuration, though it was better suited to bombing. Yakovlev Yak-9. Again, primarily a single-engine fighter, but long-range variants with additional fuel tanks served in roles typically assigned to heavy fighters, long-range escort, and reconnaissance. The Yak-9 was adaptable, with variants mounting 37mm and even 45mm cannons for anti-tank work. While not a true heavy fighter, its versatility allowed it to perform similar missions. Japanese heavy fighters. Nakajima J-1 Gecko, Japan's primary night fighter, the Gecko was originally designed as a long-range escort fighter, but failed in that role. Converted to night fighting with upward-firing cannons, it became effective against B-29 raids. The Gecko was relatively slow, but could reach bomber altitudes, and the upward-firing Schrag Music armament was devastating. Gecko pilots would position below B-29s and fire into their bellies where defensive guns couldn't reach. It represented Japan's adaptation to changing requirements. When one role failed, they found another use. Kawasaki Ki-45. Toryu. The Dragon Slayer was Japan's most important heavy fighter. Designed for long-range escort, it served mainly as a ground attack aircraft and night fighter. The Ki-45 could carry a heavy armament of cannons, including large-caliber weapons for destroying bombers. Japanese pilots used Ki-45s in ramming attacks against B-29s when ammunition was exhausted, sacrificing themselves to protect the homeland. The Toryu proved capable in multiple roles, though like most Japanese aircraft, it lacked adequate defensive armament and pilot protection. Mitsubishi Ki-83, Japan's attempt to create a long-range heavy fighter that could match American performance. The Ki-83 was fast, reaching 438 km/h, and had excellent range. But it arrived in 1945 when Japan was already defeated. Only 4 were built before the war ended. Test pilots said it was one of the finest aircraft Japan produced, combining speed, maneuverability, and firepower. The Ki-83 represented what Japan could have achieved with more time and resources. Brilliant engineering undone by timing and industrial capacity. Italian heavy fighters. Savoia Marchetti SM.79. Primarily a torpedo bomber, but the SM.79 served in heavy fighter roles, particularly early in the war. It was actually a converted civilian airliner, and its 3-engine configuration was unusual for a combat aircraft. The SM.79 was more successful as a torpedo bomber, devastating Allied shipping in the Mediterranean. But some variants carried additional forward-firing armament for fighter duties. It represented Italian improvisation, adapting what they had to multiple roles. Capronica .311, a twin-engine reconnaissance and light bomber that served in limited numbers as a heavy fighter. The CA.311 was underpowered and poorly armed, inadequate for frontline combat. It served mainly in North Africa and the Balkans against limited opposition. The CA.311 showed Italy's industrial limitations. They could design aircraft, but struggled to produce competitive combat types. French heavy fighters. Potez 631. France's twin-engine fighter at the start of World War II, the Potez 631 served as a heavy fighter and night fighter. It was adequately armed with cannons and machine guns, but suffered from poor performance. During the Battle of France, Potez 631s achieved limited success against German bombers, but were outclassed by fighters. Many were destroyed on the ground during the German invasion. The Potez 631 represented France's attempts to modernize its air force, cut short by defeat. Breguet 693. Designed as a ground attack aircraft, the Breguet 693 had some heavy fighter characteristics with its twin engines and forward-firing armament. It served briefly during the Battle of France, conducting low-level attacks on German columns. The 693 was relatively fast and could carry a useful bomb load, but French defeat meant it saw limited action. Some survived to serve Vichy France and later the Free French, demonstrating its basic soundness despite limited opportunity. Specialized and experimental heavy fighters. Bell YFM-1 Aracuda. One of the strangest American designs, the YFM-1 featured two pusher engines with gunners in nacelles ahead of each engine, operating 37mm cannons. The theory was these gunners could engage enemy bombers while the pilot maneuvered. In practice, the concept was ludicrous. If a gunner needed to bail out, the propeller behind him would kill him. The engines overheated constantly, and performance was poor. Only 13 were built, none saw combat, and the program was a complete failure. The Aracuda represented innovative thinking taken to absurd extremes. Focke-Wulf FWW-187 Falk. Germany's lightweight twin-engine fighter, the Falk was fast and maneuverable, reportedly outperforming the Bf-109 in testing. But it was never ordered into production, victim of political interference and the Luftwaffe's preference for other types. Only prototypes were built, and they served limited combat trials. The FW-187 represented what might have been, a capable heavy fighter that never got its chance. Dornier Du 335 File. The Arrow was the fastest piston-engine aircraft Germany built, using a unique push-pull engine configuration. One engine in the nose pulling, one in the tail pushing. This centerline thrust eliminated asymmetric handling from engine failure. The Du 335 could reach 474 mph, faster than many early jets. It arrived too late, with only about 37 completed before war's end. The few that flew showed impressive performance, but Germany's collapse meant the file never achieved operational status. It represented German engineering's last gasp, innovative, capable, and too late to matter. From the Mosquito's wooden elegance to the P-38's distinctive silhouette, heavy fighters proved that firepower, range, and versatility could be as valuable as pure dogfighting ability, creating a class of aircraft that served in roles from bomber escort to night hunting across every theater of the war.